the living will is going to be the document that's really going to prescribe quality of life, termination of life, organ donation.
They call it the pull the plug provision.
Yeah, pull the plug provision. And we have seen a lot of very creative and interesting living will provisions with our entrepreneurs. But that's, I think, very important. And also, like, do you want the care at your home? Do you want care, at a facility? I think that's very important. It's kind of a sad document to be thinking through of yourself in that state. But I think it's also one of the most important documents because it's kind of in your final days, or potentially your final days. How do you want to be living your life?
I agree. And you know what happens a lot as far as organ donation? A lot of times people just don't think about it. And if you don't put that into your documents, no one's going to harvest your organs unless you put that in the documents that you want that to be done. And often when someone's just lost a loved one, they're too freaked out to make a decision like that. So that's a decision you would make for yourself. I'm a big proponent. You have to make your own decision, but I'm a big proponent. I do not believe that where I go after here, I require my liver and my heart and my kidneys. And I also have heard entrepreneurs say, well, I'm afraid that I might be fine and that they're going to harvest my organs. And usually we see the opposite, where hospitals are trying to keep people alive and do all these things, even if that person didn't want it. So that's the other reason for the living will, is not so that they keep you alive longer than you would want, and then also create all these medical bills that are not necessary for your family.
Yep. All right. And then let's go into the trust. So you got the living trust or the revocable trust. I think it's important to clear up a common misconception, which is that trust, having a living will or revocable trust, creates creditor protection. And that is not true. It is purely there to help you avoid probate. So to your point, when or if you pass away, all of the assets skirt around probate, so it's not public, it's all private. And it also allows you to avoid avoid estate taxation, which we'll talk about. And then the third thing I'd say is control from the grave, as I often say, is that you can very narrowly control and define who gets your money, when, what are the provisions, the language that the trustee needs to carry out.
In addition, it can help you preserve your exemption for a married couple. So you got $15 million each, and it can help you preserve the one who passed away. If you don't have a trust, you could squander that. So that's one way to protect that. In addition, if you have a married couple, when one person dies, you have the option of having that be a creditor protected trust. So there is that part. And then also, if you have property in multiple states, a trust will eliminate the need for a multiple state probate. And if you think probate's bad, try to do a multiple state probate. So if you have properties in different states and you don't have a revocable living trust, you just tell everyone in your family that you hate them. Next time you get together, just, I hate you. That's why I've done this way. Those are also some reasons to have a revocable living trust. And it's the best for successorship. So in other words, if you have a power of attorney for finance, usually those go only for so long, and eventually the institutions will stop accepting it. But a successor trustee could be the successor trustee for decades. Someone could be in a nursing home for 20 years. You could still be that successor trustee managing things for that person for 20 years. You can't do that with a financial power of attorney.
Yeah, no, well said. And I think the big gap we see with these trusts is that even if an entrepreneur has a trust set up, it needs to be funded. And what that means is you need to make sure your assets are actually owned in the name of the trust. Now, that's not required for like a 401k, an IRA. Those you just got to get the beneficiaries on because those are going to be passed outside of probate. But your business, your real estate, your brokerage accounts, your crypto, any private equity, any of those types of assets, you need to make sure are actually owned by the trust. Otherwise, the trust is just a piece of paper. So it needs to be filled up with all of the assets.
Yeah, the way it was described to me probably 30 years ago by an attorney is trust is like a box. Everything you put in that box is governed by that box. If you don't put something in the box, it's not governed by the box. And what we mean is by titling things into the name of the trust. Also, if you have 401ks, IRAs, and you're naming beneficiaries who are minors or people you don't have responsibility, you can use the trust as the beneficiary, but you want to make sure there's specialized language in the trust to handle IRAs and 401ks, and often people overlook that.